And that's how you launch a new code editor with ASCII art animation, old school style. So yeah, it's done. Version 1.0 has been uploaded, and don't know what to say really. It's been so long. It's been 6 years in development now, and the last 3 years has been open beta. So I thought it was finally time to release. It's now a real-world product that you can purchase on the website. So as I said, it's been a long project. It's like 6 years, and I wanted to mark the occasion with this live stream, and also say a big thank you to a lot of people. Firstly, friends and family. You've been so supportive and often believed in me more than I believe in myself, and it's been so helpful, and you've been putting up with me locking myself away in a room for 3 years to get this thing finished. I really appreciate that. Oh, I need to move to the next animation. So I also want to say thank you to all of my beta supporters. Some of you have been with me for 3 years now, and all of your contributions have been incredibly helpful. You've all been so generous, also with your time as well. I mean, I'd like to say two things: that A, Tedx wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for all of you, and B, it wouldn't be half as good because you've given me such great feedback. You know, so many feature requests and bug reports, helping me to fix them, and you've been so patient and always believed in me. So yeah, it's kind of a big moment to finally have the beta be over, but hopefully onto new and bigger things. This is just the start. So I hope you like my little script. I thought I'd write something in Tedx to celebrate. So this is a little script I wrote. It's all running in the editor in real time, using various functions in the API that are already there. I had quite a lot of fun writing this. So it's updating at the moment. It's updating a file on disk from Python, and Tedx is automatically reloading it and creating this animation. It's all being done at like 60 frames a second. So yeah, that was a bit fun. I can share the script if anyone's interested. It just shows what you can do with the scripting. But anyway, I thought I would, let's stop that. Oh, thanks for all your messages, everyone. Appreciate that. I thought I'd go over the history of the development of Tedx, as much as anything for my own sake, because it's nice to remember and get it in my mind what's actually been happening, because it's hard to see it as a whole sometimes. So as I said, it's been 6 years. That's what this timeline shows. And I thought I'd just quickly take you through some of the highlights and high points of it. So started just at the end of 2016, and before that I'd been working, these orange bars are representing the contracting I've been doing in the games industry. So before that I was doing lots of contracting, and I was also working on my game called Shapes, actually, which I unfortunately never released, but I got quite close to finishing it. And while I was writing my game, I wrote a UI framework, and it was cross-platform, rendering engine with OpenGL, DirectX rendering, and it worked on all the handheld platforms, Android, iOS, etc., Windows, Mac. So I kind of had this powerful UI framework, text rendering and all the rest, and I decided to stop working on the game, and I was wondering what to do next. And it's something I've always wanted to do, is write my own editor. So I thought I'd give it a go. There was nothing to lose. I had a bit of time, a few months on my hands to spare. So I started it. I called it Coed, which is a terrible name. But I just needed some placeholder name to get started. It wasn't long, like 4 or 5 months before I came up with the name Tedx. The name Tedx actually came because I think, as often does the rounds on Twitter, people are talking about the 10x programmer and does the 10x programmer exist, etc., which I always think is quite funny. And I thought, what would the 10x programmer use? They would obviously use 10x editor, and that's where I came up with the name, and it kind of stuck. One of the first things I did was workspace search, which for me is the most important part of the editor. As long as I've got something like workspace search, I can use any editor. I don't need anything else. So for me, that was the bare minimum. And as soon as I get that working, I could start using the editor. That went in right at the start. Then after quite a few months working on it, I had to go back contracting, earn a bit of money. So this is contracting at different games companies. But I think back then I was doing like 4 days a week. So I had another 3 days a week to work on the editor. So I didn't stop working on it, but I just slowed down a little bit. Most of this time, as you can see, was working on the parser, the C++ parser, which is obviously, as I'm sure you all know from watching my other live streams, that's the biggie. That's the big thing about Tedx and the hardest thing to get right. But back then, I kind of always thought, I've just got a couple more months and then I'll be done. I had enough to get me working workspace search and text editing. I don't personally use that much complicated text editing stuff, so I kind of had enough for me, and I just thought, just a couple more months and then maybe I can release it. And then it was another couple of months, and then another couple of months, and then another couple of months. And it's like, it kept going on, and the reason is because obviously the scope kept getting bigger. I kept deciding to add more stuff. And a lot of the time was spent optimizing as well. Right from the very start, I was using on code bases such as Unreal Engine, which obviously is a huge code base. And for me, it had to work optimally on even the biggest code base out there. So that was what I spent most of my time doing, aside from editing, and the Python scripting actually went in like September 2018. I thought I'd had it in earlier than that, to be honest, but I had to look at my history, check in history, and that's apparently when it went in. But that's been an absolutely critical part of the whole editor. Color schemes went in 2019, which made it look a bit nicer. And then I had to go back contracting again, and some more money to keep going. And as I said, I kept thinking in another couple of months, but I kind of wasn't sure at that point because it was just getting bigger and bigger. And I thought, this is such a big project, it's going to take like 10 years in total to do. Oh yeah, let me move the... There we go, that's better. So at this point, I was having doubts because I could see the scope of the project was getting too big. I mean, what I wanted was a project I could do on my own, just work on something I enjoyed working on and then share it with people. But it was turning into a bigger project than I'd kind of signed up for. And I thought it's going to take 10 years to do. So like I've been working on it 3 years at this point. So I thought it's going to take another 7 years to finish this. And I didn't know whether I wanted to carry on. I didn't want to know whether I wanted to do a project that big. So what I did, and I'm so glad I did do this, was I started the open beta. And I posted it on Twitter. I had a few hundred followers back then. And I really wasn't expecting anything. Because I mean, the reason I was having these doubts was because I thought, there are so many really good text editors out there. Why does the world need another one? I mean, I knew why I did because I had tried different editors and none of them quite fit what I wanted. But I wasn't sure if I could convince other people of that, because it's quite a hard sell. You know, people are very bought into their current editors, and to contemplate moving to another one, it is a big thing. And I wasn't sure if I could convince people or people would get what I was doing. But I was pleasantly surprised when I did the open beta. I immediately had like a couple hundred or maybe 300 people downloading it and trying it, which I thought was amazing. And I had lots of emails from people saying they understand exactly what I'm doing. You know, a fast, lightweight editor without any kind of big tech stacks or anything, all written from scratch, that just works. And people really got what I was doing. And I thought, maybe I'm on something. And I decided to carry on. Then, obviously, what happened was COVID lockdown. Shortly after that, I think it's shortly after. And the whole country was locked down, the whole world was locked down. So I thought, okay, I can do lockdowns, lock myself in a room with a computer and get on with it. So I did. And I had my first subscriber. Subscribers are represented by these little yellow stars, because you are stars. And that was so exciting. And that's when I started doing my live streams as well. That's what these red dots represent. So it started to pick up speed and people were using it, and it was very exciting. So I opened my GitHub issues page to log bugs and feature requests, and started working on the really big stuff that needed to be done. Now, one of the big things was the memory. So all the way up to development so far, I hadn't cared about memory at all, because memory is my thing. It's kind of what I spent most of my career doing, squashing memory down so that games fit into memory. So I wasn't too worried about it. But when I looked at it, something like Unreal was taking like 35 gig, which obviously is way too high for an editor. So something needed to be done. So that's what this green bar represents. So I started that like 2021. And I spent a good number of months just working on squashing the memory down. And I managed to do it. I managed to make an 80% memory saving, which was brilliant and a big relief. And I literally did that by squashing it down, by compressing stuff in memory and decompressing it as necessary. And I've done a number of live streams on that. So if you're interested, go back and have a look. And the other big thing was the preprocessor. I spent so long working on the parser that I hadn't really worried about the preprocessor. Because I mean, preprocessor is a kind of solved problem. It's not as complex, obviously, as a C++ language. So I wasn't too worried about it, and I'd kind of been putting it off. And eventually I needed to do it. So again, I spent a few months working on the preprocessor. And it was a little tricky. It was tricky to make it work, connect with the parser properly, and also to make it not explode memory again and parse time. Because, you know, a lot of code bases use a lot of preprocessor stuff. And as you know, preprocessor stuff expands the more you use it, and it can turn a small code base into an absolutely humongous code base. And it was pretty hard to get that right. But eventually I did. What else did I do? I started doing the same C++ live streams where I talked about how I use C++. So there are clumps all around there. So again, go back and have a look at those if you're interested. And I had a number of spikes of new subscribers around mid-2021 and early 2022. And I think that was when I had some YouTube streamers sharing and talking about Tedx, which was really appreciated. And then really it was mostly just bugs until the end. The syntax highlighting went in. That was an important thing because up until then I only had syntax highlighting for C++ and no other languages. So I added like 10 or 11 different languages using the new syntax highlighting system, which made it look a lot better, much more like a professional editor then. So that was quite an important time. And doing more live streams as we went. Bugs, as always. And the new websites went in 2023. Yeah, I think it literally was at the end there, 2022. So getting close to launch, and here we are now today on the launch. So that's the entire timeline. It's really nice for me to look back on it. So one of the things I'll say is never give up. Always at some point show people what you're doing, because you might be surprised. So, oh yeah, this is the telemetry that I've been recording. So this isn't all users, it's only people with telemetry enabled. And this is right from the start of the beta, 2017. And I remember being so excited when I had these two spikes of this is how many hours per day Tedx is used. So people were actually using it right from the start. And that was so exciting. I remember thinking, wow, this is happening. It seems so funny now, how it's grown. So again, I had some spikes around here. I think this is a share someone did on the stream, and another one around here. And then it's just gradually been growing over that time. So this is the number of users in green. Again, it was gradually growing, but only slowly, and suddenly a big spike, and then suddenly another big spike. But the nice thing is the usage time is going up faster than the number of users. And the reason that's good is because it means the people who are currently using it are using it more. So there's less switching back to other editors or whatever. And that just means Tedx is becoming more well-rounded and usable full time. So I'm really pleased with that. And that's really good. And it's always nice to track these things to see how you're going. A few more stats for you. So I know we all like stats. So as I said, 6 years, 3 months, 75 months in total, 2,250 days. Doesn't sound so many when you say it like that, I think. So the project line count, almost 500,000 lines. And these are just lines I've written. This doesn't include any external libs or anything. So about 500,000 lines of code. And you can see the breakdown there. So it's pretty big, at least big for one person anyway. So I thought, I wonder how much it is in terms of memory, the actual memory of all the files combined. So it's only 16 meg, which doesn't sound like much at all, does it? And then I zipped it up and it's only 1.5 meg, which is nothing. For 6 years' work, 1.5 meg. But anyway, I decided to work out how many bytes per day. So when you zip something, you're basically getting a measure of the amount of information that's in that. So I worked out I was creating 713 bytes of information per day over the 6 years, which actually I think is pretty high. I mean, I've never worked it out for any other code base before, but that many bytes per day consistently for 6 years, I'm pretty happy with that. It's pretty good. So the last version was 0.36.16. Actually, it's 18, I think now. I've done a couple of versions last couple of days, fixing some bugs and things. 582 versions released. So as you know, those who've been following me and subscribing, I kind of releasing versions every few days or so. And I really like that. I like the fast turnaround, the feedback. You can post a bug, I fix it, upload a build, and then you're using it like a few hours later. And I really like that fast turnaround. So we'll see about how that goes going forwards. So in Perforce, 9,714 changes. That's how many changes there were. That sounds like a big number. 1,220 changes to the parser cache version number. So as you know, when I change the parser, I need to update the cache because it needs to store different data. So every time I do that, I bump the version number on the cache, and I've done over 1,000 of those. So that just shows how much work has been done on the parser. So I think that's pretty much everything. So what's next? So I'm just checking my notes. So obviously it's released now. The beta's over, but in a way it doesn't mean anything has to change. So, you know, when you purchase a license, it'll be the same as being subscribed to the beta. You'll have access to the Discord. And what I'm thinking of doing is creating 2 streams. So one stream will be the stable release, and the other stream will be the, like, I don't know what I call it yet, maybe internal release or something, or cutting edge release. And I probably will carry on working as I have been with the internal release, updating new versions fairly frequently, maybe not quite as frequently, because I want to keep it stable, and then just maybe update the stable stream every couple of weeks or once a month or something like that. So there's always a stable build that people can use. So yeah, I think that's everything. So please share the editor with everyone you know. I don't have a marketing budget, so it's going to be spread by word of mouth only, really. So please do talk about it and post about it. And I'm really looking forward to the future. I think this could be big. And I think although it's the end of the beta, it's really just the start of something much bigger, hopefully. So I'm looking forward to the time ahead. And I hope you are too. And I hope you enjoy using the Tedx editor. And thanks again, everyone, for all your support and all your lovely messages. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure I'll carry on doing these live streams with all the new features that come in. And it looks like I have some bugs already to fix on the pricing page. Okay, I'll take a look at that. So, okay, until next time, I'll sign off now and see you soon. Take care.